Fest. And so I will start. I am Sarah Fitznitz. I'm the Assistant Director for Research at the Schaefer Center for Public Policy, which is supporting the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission in Maryland. I will turn it over to Jake.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob Shue. I'm the chair of the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Nice to meet everybody.
Senator?
Yeah, I'm Senator Jim Rosenfeld, a member of the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission.
Ms. Riley?
I'm Denise Riley, Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs for American Federation of Teachers, Maryland. I'm sitting in for Kenya Campbell.
I'm just working through everybody on my Zoom screen here. Jasmine?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jasmine Jardo. I'm a research analyst with the Schaefer Center for Public Policy here alongside Sarah.
Natalie?
Hello, I'm the Legislative Director for Senator Hester.
Thank you for being here. Molly?
Hello, I'm Molly O'Hara. I am here on behalf of Senator Mary Beth Carrozza, who is a member of the commission.
Tatiana?
Hello, I'm Tatiana Hill. I work with the Department of Legislative Services and I staff the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission. Pardon me.
Suzanne?
Hi, Suzanne Hulteen from NCSL.
Landon?
Hi, Landon Giacomo from NCSL as well. We're talking about apprenticeships today.
And Misty?
Great, thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everyone, or I guess maybe good afternoon where you are. My name is Misty Ruthven. Excuse me, I'm a strategy officer here at the governor's office and work closely with our Office of Economic Development and International Trade. Look forward to chatting today.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think we can get started. I'll turn it over to Landon and Missy at this point in time. If you need access for any other slides or anything, please let me know.
Perfect. I think we're going to start off with Misty just kind of giving a quick overview about kind of what's been going on in Colorado, if that works for you, Misty.
That sounds wonderful. Let me pull my slides up here quickly so we all are seeing the same thing. All right, so you all can see Colorado Mountains. It says Maryland Collaboration. Great. Well, hi, everybody. It's great to chat and be here with you today. I'm really looking forward to hearing about what's also happening in Maryland as you're learning from, it sounds like, other states across the country. My name is Misty Ruthven, and I've been working in our state for more than 20 years at the state level and been involved with several state agencies as well as the governor's office, connected with education, higher education, economic development, and labor and employment. So really the intersectionalities of the supply and demand sides of our economy. We have been focused on apprenticeship implementation and really thinking about how we can impact this strategy as a scaling mechanism for our economy and really see how we bring education and business together at scale to think about leveraging work-based learning, apprenticeship, on-the-job training for several populations, including adults with some college no degree, our youth population, as well as thinking about upskilling existing employees. So in looking at Maryland strategies, these seem to be in alignment, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the journey that you've experienced as well. Our state agencies really come together with locals in order to think about apprenticeship as well as business as a scalable strategy. My colleague Catherine Keegan will be here later today. She leads our state apprenticeship agency. And so what we're going to start is with a broad aperture about our workforce and then drill down as far as the legislation that we've had over the past almost 2 decades at this point. So here's Colorado's legislative journey. This has been of interest to several other states. We've really been on this trajectory to then really think about blurring the lines between the supply and demand sides of our economy, really think about what role does business play at scale, again, with education. One of the things that are several themes in the points of legislation that you see before you, and this is a highlight. I will say we've had more than 400 bills pass in this section of our conversation today over the past decade. So this has definitely been a progression of thinking about how do we move the needle what are the different levers we pull? How do we incent business? How do we incent education? Knowing that higher education has about a 20-year change cycle. K-12 is slightly less, so about 7-year change cycle. And definitely those are a bit slower than the pace of business that we see. So we really started out in 2008 with an entire package of reforms. Several other states did too at that time, thinking about how do we modernize K-12 education to be more responsive to the careers and jobs that we have today, as well as additional training through our higher education and training partners. Then you'll see a progression of a significant expansion across our state, where we went from a few hundred students participating in concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment programs and getting credentials in high school. And that significantly expanded to what is now half of all students in high school across the state receiving stackable credentials in high school, industry credentials, participating in work-based learning and apprenticeship. So really the expansion of how might we prepare students in high school for jobs and training beyond. And then you'll see us really in the past few years focus on also pulling business in more closely to think about how do we help business be in the drive and industry be in the driver's seat, to then think about what are the skills, what are the competencies that they need? How does that stack? How does that align with the other funding and efforts and incentives that we have in place? So overall, our goal has been to how do we align the incentives in the system for the behaviors that we'd like to see, which is essentially ensuring that Coloradans, our homegrown talent, have the skills that they need to live and thrive in our state and have a great job, and also have economic mobility, right? So have choice-filled lives, have the ability to live where they want, have mobility around their choices as well. Questions about the scaffolding? I know I was pretty broad, and then Catherine will talk a little bit more specifically about what this has meant for our apprenticeship. Our state apprenticeship agency has been stood up in the past few years, so is relatively new. We did rely previously on the U.S. Department of Labor and our regional collaborations and partnership there for apprenticeship authorization. And so this has really been a progression with our state. We also have really focused on in the past couple of years standing up apprenticeship intermediaries. So this is something that Catherine will talk about more, but if you can see really the blossoming and the groundswell of themes, we did start between the intersection of K-12 education, thinking about how do we blend that with education and training, and then bringing business to the table to then co-create talent at scale with our education systems, and this includes apprenticeship. All right, feel free to ask questions, or Landon and Sarah, toss out if there are any questions in the chat. So I think we talked about a lot of this, but we oftentimes get questions about what are the groupings of bills that also focused on certain areas. So you'll see the apprenticeship and work-based learning grouping of bills, filling in-demand jobs. So this is thinking about retraining our adult populations as well as supporting our youth populations. A few trends that we have in this state that I would love to learn how this is similar or dissimilar to Maryland is we have several 100,000 people with some college, no degree, and that's almost 1 million people. In our state, which is quite large, given our total state population is around 6.5 million people. And then we have a large population of folks, about fewer than 300,000, about 250,000, without a high school diploma. So we really see these folks as areas of opportunity and populations. A few trends that we saw during COVID, we saw women leaving the workforce. We have seen a groundswell and return of women returning to the workforce, which has been positive. And then we also are focused on how might we have increased participation of new Americans, people of color, and the traditionally underserved. So this is something that we've seen really been a focus, and our ARPA dollars that we've in all states received for pandemic era money, we've really invested heavily in workforce to the tune of about $1 billion, including apprenticeship. We also see, I'll add this, career advising as a fundamental foundation of all of these other activities. So it's difficult, for example, if you think about the intersectionality of high school advice, so high school counselors, workforce center advisors, higher education advisors. All of these folks are in the career advising fields, and we're trying to ensure that they all have similar or the same information around how do you become a career advisor? What does this look like? What information do you need to have to empower the individuals around you? So ensuring that they have the same information regarding our skill and job needs on a county level basis. So yeah, Senator.
Yeah, what changes have you made on a career advisor?
Yes, I'm really glad you asked. So we developed the first in, I think, the nation career advising framework, because we looked and looked and looked and looked. We worked with the National Chamber, we worked with the American School Counseling Association, we worked with National Workforce Centers, and we could not find a consistent framework that we could replicate and use across all of our systems. So we created Colorado Career Conversations, meaningful career conversations that then were built into the ASCA model, as well as the National Workforce Advising model, and created a framework by which people could have a similar conversation with the goal of all open doors. So if someone went into their high school counselor or a workforce center or a higher education career center, then they would have a similar experience where they wouldn't have to necessarily start from the beginning, but that we would have a process by which folks could understand and have similar nomenclature of how we talk about our in-demand careers in the state. This was very data informed. Colorado Future Jobs is a resource and tool that goes down to the county level about what are the in-demand jobs and open jobs that we have in our state, what are the existing jobs that we have in that specific county that are filled, and then how might we pivot and bring in and counsel and support these folks into these jobs and what training is needed, right? So really thinking about, is apprenticeship the right foundation? What is needed in order to fill those in-demand jobs?
I'm going to follow up on that, but I'm trying to understand what you actually do.
So we trained thousands of people in a 2-year period on how to be career advisors. So it might be surprising. One of the surprising things that we learned along this process is many of our career advisors in higher education, workforce, and K-12, so even our high school counselors might have one class in their master's degree about how to advise for career. And yet that is a large portion of percentage of the skills and jobs that they perform. Additionally, workforce center folks and higher education, they may have on-the-job training only without any other reference about how to be a career counselor. So we consistently provided training across all sectors. And this was also very interesting in that no one had ever before trained folks across multiple sectors in career advising. They had focused on K-12 or higher education or workforce, right? But this is really bringing those folks together on a community basis and having that conversation about how we fill jobs.
And who did the training? Who paid for it?
Yeah, so the state paid for the training, and then this was multi-sectors between our state agencies, between our departments of education, higher education, and labor and employment and economic development.
I'm trying to follow it. So the high school counselors were trained by people out of the State Department of Education? I don't understand.
I'm glad you asked. So if you think about this, we passed a bill, right? So 22-165, and this money went to, yes, our Department of Education. However, we directed them to specifically, and they were required to collaborate directly with our departments of labor and employment, higher education, and economic development to then co-create a model, and the trainings that themselves had high school counselors, had workforce center advisors, had higher education advisors. So this happened on a regional basis. And then there was follow-up training and support offered as well.
So the workforce board counselors and the higher ed counselors and the high school counselors were trained as a group regionally by trainers hired and paid for by the state?
Correct. And that were state employees themselves, because we wanted that consistency versus having a contractor come in.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking. So here's some other specific highlights of larger scale programs that have occurred across the state. As I said, we put about $1 billion into workforce supports. And what this has done is been an investment in so to get specific, in our community colleges. And then they use stackable credential models, apprenticeship and work-based learning to train these folks. So the problem that I think many states had during the pandemic is we saw large amounts of people leave healthcare, large amounts of people leave education systems, and these other really career in-demand jobs that we have to fill to make the rest of the segments of our economy work. And so we wanted to have a very quick turnaround dynamic process in order to get new folks or to bring those folks that had left back in the pipeline. And what we heard from a lot of those folks is that they wanted a better job than what they had before. So maybe they were a CNA and they wanted to be an LPN or nurse. So we tried to have these very clear pathways that would upskill and retrain them, again, leveraging work-based learning and apprenticeship and on-the-job training so that we could fill these jobs quickly. So with the $26 million investment that went to our community colleges in coordination with industry to do this, we've been able to train more than 10,000 Coloradans and put them into our healthcare jobs. And so we have one of the highest filled rates of these entry-level jobs across the nation in our state. And we attribute this to some of these investments that were made in these high need fields. So again, bringing the foundation is bringing education and industry together to specifically have iterative training and leverage this multimodal approach so that we can get people into jobs and get them the skills they need. We're getting a little short on time. The last program we want to make sure we have time to talk about was our large scale investment in grant making that went to all regions and all 64 counties in our state. And this was the $90 million that was through House Bill 22-1350. This was led by our Office of Economic Development and International Trade for the sole purpose of, again, you'll see a theme here, filling in-demand jobs and putting business and industry in the driver's seat to become co-creators of talent. So empowering them to decide how they want to implement apprenticeship, how they want to implement stackable credentials, and on-the-job and work-based learning, on-the-job training and work-based learning. So essentially, this was a competitive grant competition. We received 700 applications, which was quite a lot, and we were able to put 89 awards across our state. So this is a large scale investment of nearly $100 million. And the focus industries are healthcare, education, advanced industries, early childhood, and construction. So you'll also see this is in alignment with the large scale and federal investments that are being made through IIJA, IRA, CHIPS, BEAD. So our other goal is to draw down as much federal money as possible in alignment with these resources. So this is really a seeding mechanism to bring regions together, to bring education and industry together, to understand their local needs and goals, and understand also how to find a common communication of how do we talk to each other, and then what are the local strategies that we want to employ to meet our needs. So you'll see the goals here that we have on the slide. I won't belabor this point. There are definitely themes in what we've done consistently across the state to then, again, empower business and help education iterate more quickly and have a faster change cycle. So we have pushed out through the last few years, nearly $100 million across our ecosystem. What we've really seen is industry and business come to the table in a really dynamic way, and business and industry of all sizes. So we also have seen thousands of jobs being filled in our advanced industries. So think of bioscience, quantum jobs, as well as IT, and our high-tech jobs. So in addition to, again, the reinforcement of those foundational industries that support all other industries, such as education, early childhood, construction. So we have housing, right? We have to build more housing across our state, as well as healthcare, which is fundamental to all of our communities. these are this is the amount of money that has gone in to the different types of grants. So planning grants for communities to bring, again, people together, seed grants to think about maybe starting an apprenticeship or work-based learning or stackable credentials, pathways, collaboration. And scaling is taking an existing program and then saying, okay, how do we double, triple the capacity within this environment? This is a distribution across our state to give you an idea about the fact that we've been able to reach even our most rural parts of Colorado. And with that, I'll stop. I know we just have a few more minutes left and I need to hop. That was a lot in a very short period of time, and I'm happy to get more specific, Senator.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. One is, what do they actually do with the money? I'm not clear.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So within, let's try to stop sharing so we can have a conversation. So essentially, the money has gone to industry. And they support, for example, building out, it could be building out training facilities, it could be building out curriculum, it could be paying for apprenticeship, it could be paying for the costs associated with developing a registered apprenticeship. It could also be hiring instructors so they have capacity. It could also be helping support business to come to the table to then understand how do they start apprenticeship, how do they host work-based learnings, how do they upskill their existing employees without stopping them out from work. So it's really, again, thinking about and empowering local folks to say, okay, what is it we need? What are the most effective strategies that are going to work for our business and companies? And then how do we decide how we might want to spend these resources? So primarily we've seen direct costs for human capital in education and training.
Sorry, direct costs for what?
For human capital, so education and training.
Hiring people.
So hiring people to train others and then also pay for training wages.
I understand. You know the number of apprenticeships that were produced through that effort?
So it's still underway, and Catherine can maybe give you a more specific example. I know of a few dozen at least as far as new registered apprenticeships that are being developed.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and we've trained, we're on track to train 20,000 folks is our goal with that $100 million. And we've trained about 5,000 in the first year.
Do any other commission members have other questions for Misty? How about while you wait, I was hoping, Misty, you might be able to talk a little bit more. You said you were standing up intermediaries. If you can talk a little bit more about that and any lessons learned so far.
Yeah, so I'm excited for Catherine to join in a couple minutes. She'll have a lot more details. So I believe it was a few $1 million that in grants that went to our state apprenticeship agency, and they led a competitive grant cycle and then have funded, I think it was 39, somewhere in that ballpark, apprenticeship intermediaries across our state. So they could look like chambers of commerce, workforce centers, economic development, higher education. So those are the types of registered apprenticeship intermediaries that were established.
And do you have any, because one of the things Maryland probably needs to do is establish more of these, any lessons learned or recommendations so far?
I would say Catherine can probably speak better to that because she led the program. I'm less close to it. I'll say it that way.
No problem.
Yeah, I will say it's, she can also speak. I would love to know how many folks she had apply, because we were excited to, I think, have 39 folks established, and they're also excited. One of the things that she's doing really well is bringing them together so they can learn from one another.
Great. Anyone else? We appreciate you being here, Misty. Thank you so much. And appreciate, Landon sent me your slides, so I appreciate the presentation today. Landon?
So, sorry, I have one question.
Oh,
yeah.
Delegate Wu, yes.
So unfortunately, I missed this first like 10, 15 minutes. Can I get the slides somehow if somebody would like to share that?
I will make them available after the meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Yeah, I think we have Representative Goodrich here from Indiana to just kind of talk about what Indiana has been doing on workforce development and apprenticeships and really merging kind of apprenticeships with their education system. So Rep Goodrich, if you're here, feel free to unmute and kind of just talk about what's been going on in Indiana. I do see him in here, but I don't, maybe he's not here yet.
We can't hear.
Ah, there he is.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. There's more than one mute button, I guess. So I couldn't, technology, I couldn't figure it out. I did not catch the introduction or I didn't hear from anybody. So am I supposed to start talking or what?
Yeah, I was just saying that feel free to start kind of talking about what's going on in Indiana, especially around how you guys have been merging education and workforce training and putting apprenticeships into schools and kind of all of that's been going on in Indiana.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your guys' time and just the discussion, because I do think it's probably one of the biggest discussions that has been occurring and needs to continue to happen, because again, I tell the story that when I was a younger kid, you never really had to learn about applied learning because my parents made sure I had plenty of applied learning when I was a young man. But they had to worry about keeping me in school because I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to work. And so today I have 4 kids, and I struggled to help find them an applied learning experience. They're a lot smarter than I was, but we had to find an application where they could have an applied learning so it become wisdom. And so I represent House District 29 in north of Indianapolis, Indiana. I own a company called Gaylor Electric. We have about 3,500 employees, and we're an electrical company that works in just about every state in the United States. And I also have my own high school. So I have a school right here in this building that I'm sitting in. I have about 60 high school students. They're anywhere from freshmen to seniors, and they spend half their day in the STEM model, and the other half of the day they learn to build America in a pre-apprenticeship program that's credited by our high school, our state, and as part of their diploma. And so that's called the Gaylor Crossing. It's a partnership between Crossing High School and Gaylor. And so that model is really what stemmed House Bill 1002 in 2023 and 1001 in House Bill, 1001 in 24. And so my understanding is from what I got from you guys in the discussion, you really wanted to discuss those bills and how they're changing Indiana and how that's working. Is that correct?
That would be great. Yeah, happy to talk about that.
All right. Well, the first what we did in 2023 is we created a bill that is called Career Scholarship Account, CSAs, handled by the Treasurer's Office. The reason the Treasurer's Office handles the account and the money, of course, the money, but we also have a lot of homeschoolers and private schools in Indiana, and they don't want to work with the Department of Education. They want to, their parent, they're homeschooled. They want to actually have an ability for their kids to become apprentice in all kinds of trades. And so we let the treasurer's office handle the money. So we funded 1,000 students the first year in 23, and we funded the 2,000 students in 24. The first year it took a while to get off the ground. We only had 300 or 400 students, but this year we filled up the 2,000 students. And what CSAs are you have to be 10th, 11th, or 12th grade in a current high school, anywhere from a private to public to homeschool, but you got to be in that grade. You can apply to the treasurer's office for this scholarship. It's a $5,000 per student, and then you're able to use that to pay for these applications of apprenticeships and applied learning experiences, certifications, what we call currency that a student will take with them. And so that's how the actual account is set up. Now, the Department of Education handles the actual application to make sure the rigor is there and it's meeting diploma standards. And they also approve what we call intermediaries. Intermediaries are a group that we funded that connect businesses with the schools and the students. So let's say you're an electrical contractor like Gaylor Electric. There's an intermediary in our region. They connect me with all the schools to see what kind of opportunities we can build in the private sector during their school day. And so it really provides resources directly to the student for work-based learning experience. And it's been handled very well. We funded it for $15 million in the first 2 years. Hopefully we're funding it for $70 million in this budget cycle. We're a part-time legislature and we have a biannual budget. And so that's kind of what 1001 really did. It's basically, we want the corporate world to get involved in educating our kids. This thing pays for a private piece of that so that we can get businesses to employ our students during the school day. And of course, on top of that, we had a career coaching piece in this bill, which was almost $25 million for 2 years. It requires schools to meet with each student 30 minutes to actually talk about careers and the paths they're kind of moving on. It establishes a career coaching services for our schools, not counseling, but also allows schools to apply for this career coaching. And we think between the coaching, the intermediaries, and the private sector world, getting our kids this applied learning experience better prepares them for college if they go to college. You know, we're about 50-50 here in the state of Indiana. About 50% of our kids go to college, 50% don't. But for those 50%, we believe it'll give them more staying power in college. And for the other 50%, we believe it prepares them to actually come out of high school and prepared for the workforce. So that's what 1002 did in 23. And in 24, so the #1 House Republican agenda bill, we continued to navigate this career coaching and make sure it's being effective. We actually put in there, I found this out as the author of both these bills, that one of our big problems is our kids don't have driver's license. And so we actually made driver's training part of a billable expense for the career scholarship. So now we could get these kids driver's training so they can get back and forth from the schools to their work experience, because there's some question about transportation, and that's a real difficult thing in Indiana. So we did add driver's training, and we also the program, we wanted to actually develop, again, this private piece and this intermediary piece. And so 1001 expanded the abilities in that area. So basically what we've got now is we've got 2,000 kids that's already started school this year that are working in private businesses or private associations, getting their apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship. And so this career scholarship account will then allow our kids that after they graduate high school, they'll have about 500 hours of their on-the-job training hours for their apprenticeship program, and they'll start as an A2 instead of apprenticeship 1. So it cuts a whole year off their apprenticeship, and it gives them 500 hours of on-the-job training, which of course then raises their pay right out of high school. So both of these bills work together and actually developing our kids into applied learning experience, build America right into the apprenticeship program where they can go get their associate's degree during their apprenticeship program and a 3-year apprenticeship if they go to the pre-apprenticeship, and they and basically in 3 years they can become a journeyman. So that's where we're at. That's the two bills. I figured there'd be some questions. So I thought I'd stop there and see if there's any specifics.
Do commission members have any questions to start with? Senator Rosapep?
Yeah, hi, Representative Goodrich. I'm Senator Jim Rosapep.
Hey, Senator, how are you?
Good. Very interesting to hear what you guys been doing. Got a bunch of questions. On these scholarship accounts, what is the money used for exactly? Where does the money go? I don't quite follow it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so what we did with the Treasurer's Office and the Department of Education is the private business has to submit. It's not all 5,000. Some of it's $1,200 training, some of it's $1,500 training. They submit a detailed list of the costs for the student. So I know you're gonna. That's how. And then the Treasurer's Office and the Department of Ed, in conjunction, are in charge of making sure that that program has the right rigor and that it's real billable expenses. So I give you just some examples of the costs. Tooling, material. So for instance, in our pre-apprenticeship program, in their first year, they build houses, they pour concrete, they do electrical work. And so billable for material, billable for the tools that are used for that process, any kind of book work. So like NCCER, the curriculum that was used, and of course, any kind of, like we did allow some transportation costs. And I can't remember, I think it's up to $700. And I don't remember this exact number, so I could get it for you. So transportation costs to get, one of the issues in a rural area is we have to get kids from the school to the experience. And so we did allow some of that. And so that's where the real costs come in. If we have enough students, part of the teaching, that kind of thing. Does that answer that question?
It answers a lot, but I want to push a little bit more. So,
okay,
is the money going to the employer, and this is on the job training, or is the money going to a training provider, like sort of like under WIOA? I don't quite follow it.
Yeah, no, it's great question. Right now, it goes to some of both. Some of the schools have applied, but the intent of the bill is to for a private industry to put together a pre-apprenticeship applied learning experience or certification. Like for instance, we got a lot of car mechanic groups that have built this apprenticeship in becoming a certified mechanic.
Sure.
ASE. They have an actual billable what their costs are, and then the student has the account and the treasurer's office pays the bills.
And are these kids working and being paid, or this is just training?
The kids, this program does not require them, as long as they're working on a career,
Gotcha.
on their high school diploma, it does not require to be paid. And
Gotcha.
actually, I don't recommend that. There was a big discussion about that. I don't recommend that they are paid because I think the experience doesn't equal a sellable product.
Gotcha. And so you said you have a school. In effect, what you have is yours one of these? Is that the way to think about it?
No. So this is what I love about the Indiana State Legislature. You know, we take our experiences and then we take them back to the State House and try to figure out, okay, how do we make Indiana better?
Sure.
How do we help? And
Sure.
I'm on the Education Committee. I'm on Ways and Means. And so those two work pretty good. I'm on the K through 12. I'm the sub chair of the K through 12 subcommittee in the Ways and Means. So in charge of K through 12 funding. And of course, that's 50% of the Indiana state budget is
Gotcha.
K through 12 funding.
Sure.
So you would probably know how expensive it is. So I'm not, can you ask me the question again?
I'm just trying to understand the relationship of the program you're talking about with, you said that the school where you have.
My school.
I was just trying to understand what that was.
Yeah, that's right. So we have a partnership called The Crossing. They're a private faith-based school that works with public schools to take last chance kids into the school. Okay. They're traditionally paid for by the student allotment that the state gives per student. The public school keeps 10% of it for administration. They send 90% to the private school because most of these kids are credit deficient and not going to graduate. And we work on that process to get them graduated so they can move in there. So, but they have applied, there's a couple of them that applied for CSAs, but it would be done through The Crossing, not through Gaylor.
Gotcha. I understand. That makes sense.
But I will tell you that I'm hoping, and that's why we're, I'm working with the treasurer's office right now. 5,000, we want to do 5,000 kids next year and 7,000 the year after. We believe this thing is changing Indiana to where our kids walk out of high school with currency. Education with currency. As you know, there's many jobs to fill in apprenticeships.
Well, that was my next question is how does this relate to kids going into apprenticeships while they're in high school? It just does not. The apprenticeships are after high school in Indiana?
Yeah, again, I told, no, we have pre-apprenticeship programs that they're registered with the Federal Department of Apprenticeship. Okay. And this at work experience takes 500 hours of their time that they've spent in their labs. It gives them 500 hours of their OJT. So if you know about apprenticeships, that means they're basically coming out at A1 second semester in OJTs, but they are allowed to go right into A2 because they cover A1 in their high school years. So they become OJT, they're a second semester apprentice, but in book work, they're an A2 because there's just not enough time to get 2,000 hours when you're in high school. So
No, I understand that. So these are high school kids who are doing paid on the job work while in high school. Is that correct? Are they paid or not paid?
They are not paid for that 500 hours.
I see.
They are as part of their high school diploma.
I see. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
So, Donna?
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation. I do have a question. So they're doing a pre-apprentice at somebody's shop or business. Is that business required to hire them? Are they hiring them, or upon graduation, what is happening with them?
Yeah, so our pre-apprenticeship program has 100% hiring ever since we started it almost 5 years ago. So it has 100% hiring. Now, what we didn't what the common good of the applied learning experience has to be for the industry, not for a company. So the idea here is we're going to train electricians, and I mean, of course, we want them to come to work for us, but it's not a Gaylor specific training. It's the apprenticeship training, and they are free to the market to go work where they want. And that's why they have career fairs. We didn't want to be what we didn't want to happen was kids coming to a private company doing a state paid career scholarship account from the taxpayer, and we were paying for they could only go work at wherever. They could only go work at this business. We didn't want that. So the treasurer's office, the department head only approved the program if it is industry, not company. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm saying there, Donna?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. So,
Okay.
and so at graduation, who is tracking the success rate? And are they going into, a paid job and not another lower paid apprenticeship after their pre-apprenticeship?
Yeah.
I realize they haven't gotten the 2,000 hours. They've
Yeah,
gotten,
great.
I think you said about 500 hours.
Yeah, great question, because of course, if you we struggle a little bit with tracking. The K through 12 thinks that the diploma is your tracking, and in college starts tracking after they graduate. So we miss these, and when we miss the folks that don't go to school, and we miss the folks for the 4 years. And so this bill will have its really kind of first graduates coming up at the end of the year, and the treasurer's office in conjunction with higher ed, because really higher ed is over this entire program. They are the orchestrators of it, because what we really want to do in Indiana is start calling higher ed like post-secondary education, because that can be college, that can be apprenticeships, that can be those kind of things. And we want higher ed to represent all those kids, because we do believe that we have to continue on after high school and education, and these apprenticeships do that. So they're developing that now. I believe the treasurer's office is going to track it. I mean, that's what I believe.
Okay, so you're just developing tracking. I was confused because you said 100% are employed, and I didn't know who tracked that.
Well, let me clear that up, Donna. We've had these pre-apprenticeship programs and stuff that long before the CSA accounts, but it's very small numbers. So the CSA accounts are trying to expand these numbers into huge numbers. We in Indiana, we deal with about 40,000 kids that graduate a year. So we got about 80,000 kids that we're actually talking about here from a junior and senior year.
Okay, all right. And I'm trying, so the companies out of the industry that is doing the pre-apprentice training, do they offer jobs, industry, do they go to the fairs and offer jobs to the graduates of their programs, let's say?
Yes, they go to the career. So the pre-apprenticeship I'm talking about is handled by a private association that has all kinds of construction trades. So the way that we set that apprenticeship up, and the way it's approved at the state, is at their junior year, they get training in all areas of the construction program. All of them, like I said, concrete to electrical. They can specialize if they want in their senior year. So they pick carpentry, they go to be a carpenter, and then that's where they specifically study the carpenter, the carpentry, the book, the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and there are the employees that are members of that association for this pre-apprenticeship are at the career fair to hire those kids. And of course, the ones So that's how that association pre-apprenticeship thing works. From a private, like for me independently, I'm at about 50% higher rate for my high school here in our building. The rest of them go off to be in manufacturing. Not too many of them go to college. Some have went to get their associates, but some go to manufacturing, some go to other construction trades.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question. For the students that are there, what type of process do they have if they are experiencing trouble on the job? Say they're being harassed. They believe that they're really being harassed. Where do they go? Who can they go to for help with issues on the job? Or
Yeah,
maybe
no,
they're being asked to work more than they believe they should, according to, the contract that was set up with the school and the treasurer and everybody else involved.
Yeah, so that's a great question because student safety was number one in writing this bill because of course when the student gets out of the building, it gets a little worrisome about making sure that the student is safe first. And so it's set up very cautiously, meaning that like in my school, I have a job coach, a teacher, and then they're still connected to the public school system because that's where that's the connection to the kid. And so that's how that works. And then in the apprenticeship, we have basically a head of that is where the students go if there's an issue.
Okay.
And then right to literally the parent, since the reason that count is hooked to the kid is because, I'm sorry, what?
No, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the reason that count is hooked to the kids is because we want the parent in Indiana in charge of the kid's education.
So the parents in charge. Okay, I'm understanding. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the account is actually in the student's name.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator?
Well, Suzanne had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
I don't hear anybody.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
I did not have my hand up. Go ahead, Senator.
Okay, sure. I'm a little confused on intermediaries. So
Sure.
who is it that is organizing these programs and recruiting the employers and recruiting the kids?
Yeah, so that was we felt like we did this for we did a $5 million grant for the state of Indiana, and you could get up to $250,000 to set up an intermediary account, intermediary company. Because we felt like we needed about 20 across the state of Indiana to organize the employer discussion to the student to the schools. And so there's like, for instance, there's a company in Indianapolis called Ascend. They work with the student, the employer, and the schools. So they talk to the student. Let's say Jennifer really wants to be a teacher. And we have a teacher apprenticeship program. And so, and the school close to Jennifer actually is wanting to hire 3 or 4 kids to be a teacher apprenticeship. The apprenticeship program has been approved by the youth apprenticeship program, been approved by the Department of Ed and the higher ed. And so the intermediary connects those 3 together to
Gotcha.
let that student have a chance at an apprenticeship as a teacher.
I got you.
I mean,
yeah. I think Ascend is set up by one of the foundations in Indiana, if I recall correctly.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you give me examples of a couple of the other intermediaries?
Yeah, they I think there's 12. The one that I built the bill off on the intermediary was now you gotta make Cruise. John Cruz's company. They have 17, I think now, career experiences. So the student goes there, they do their evaluation, and they like, hey, I love to be an apprenticeship, electrical apprenticeship. So they know all the employers in the area. They hook that student up with that account. That's how that works. So
I got you.
I can't remember. I probably got the real name. Hey, I gotta tell you, if there's any, if anybody wants the bill or whatever, it is House Bill 1001 for 2024 and House Bill 1002 for 23. Those bills together have built this scholarship account.
Great. I got one last question. It'll be brief. You've talked, and you're in the business, so I appreciate that, a lot about the trades. To what extent has this system gotten kids at scale into IT, into healthcare, into business services, those kinds of things?
Yeah. So again, what we that's the end goal. I mean, at the bill, advanced manufacturing, high paying jobs. You know, we believe we can build an apprenticeship in the banking business.
Yeah.
We've got our first apprenticeship program here in Hamilton County for teachers.
Great.
IT. So Anderson University is currently working with the state to develop a cybersecurity apprenticeship that I've actually been working, my IT group's working on. We believe when that gets finalized and approved by DOE, students will go into that. We'll use the CSA account to really start building these accounts on cybersecurity.
Gotcha.
So, you know, it'd be nice, Senator, to have this conversation in 5 years.
Right.
And, you know, but again, when I look at our students of what I have here and what I'm hiring, even out of college, I believe that many industries could use students that have this applied learning experience in high school that come out with currency and certifications that can be used in the private sector world, and making sure that every student that comes out of high school is successful. So that's around the bill. I got a meeting at 12:30. I don't know if there's one last comment, but I sure loved both you, Donna and Senator. Thanks for you guys' questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I think your work here is done, Representative.
Okay. Well, if you guys have anything, let me know. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks. I think we're going to hop back to Colorado just for a little bit. We have Catherine Keegan online from the Colorado Department of Labor to kind of talk about their new state apprenticeship agency, as well as the Office of Future Work and everything. They have all the data on apprenticeships and everything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen. I just have a few slides to go through. And then happy to follow up. I have a few links in here, and I'll drop a couple of other links just based on the conversation I heard from Indiana. So background on Colorado's State Apprenticeship Agency. The State Apprenticeship Agency is actually housed in the Office of the Future of Work, which I lead in the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. And I add that here just as background for how we're trying to frame apprenticeship and really connect apprenticeship to the idea of it being part of the future of work and what we need across the state. So the office was established through an executive order in 2019. In 2021, when our legislation passed to create a state apprenticeship agency in the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, our executive director decided to house that within the office to connect those two ideas together. But the office does other work around digital equity, future of work related research with automation and other technological advances. So just background for you. I also will acknowledge I'll go through these fairly quickly, so happy to take questions at the end, but want to respect y'all's time and everything. So as I said, we're really trying to make sure people across Colorado from other state agencies, institutions of higher ed, employers, other industry partners and associations, as well as students and workers are connecting apprenticeship to the idea of the future of work, that we know that apprenticeships allow us to help kind of change the culture of work and learning and connect the dots between the two. We think apprenticeships are key to help create pathways out of low-wage work for more workers, and that they can bring in untapped talent pools. And so that's a big part of kind of the branding we're associating with apprenticeship, and really trying to grow awareness and adoption of apprenticeship beyond that. So our state apprenticeship agency is called Apprenticeship Colorado. The Apprenticeship Colorado agency basically has that regulatory authority that's been delegated from the U.S. Department of Labor to register and oversee all of the programs, the apprenticeship programs across Colorado. We provide technical assistance to any business or association that's interested in building apprenticeship. And then we're really trying to align apprenticeship with our education, workforce, economic development goals and priorities across the state. So we know apprenticeship isn't a silver bullet. It's not the solution for every workforce or economic development problem, but we believe it's a really powerful tool. And we want to make sure it's embedded throughout our state in every initiative where it can be a part of the solution. So in terms of how our state apprenticeship agency is set up and our key priorities, we have a focus on quality. We were recognized as the state apprenticeship agency just last July. So we have inherited all of the programs from the U.S. Department of Labor and are working to understand where they are at, to provide technical assistance to make sure that they're in compliance with state and federal regulations, and then to promote registered apprenticeship for the quality that is embedded in a registered apprenticeship program. And we see that as a key part of our responsibility, so that when an employer or participant is part of a registered apprenticeship program, that they're able to access all of the benefits associated, and also to draw down funds from other entities that require participation in the registered apprenticeship system. We also are really trying to expand adoption of registered apprenticeship programs. I'll drop a link to our data dashboard so you can see kind of how apprenticeship programs are distributed across the state. The bulk of our apprenticeships are in the building and construction trades, though we are working to grow apprenticeships in new and emerging industries. And so we have about 400 programs with about 1,100 employers that are participating in registered apprenticeship, and just over 7,200 apprentices that are participating in the system across all age groups. And so we want to grow both the number of programs, the employers that are participating in a program, as well as the number of apprentices. And so we include all of that as part of our expansion goals. And then we believe apprenticeship is a really great tool to increase equity for in our workforce system and in our employment system, in particular in new and emerging industries, as they are growing adoption of apprenticeship programs. We want to show how it's a great way to bring more people in. And then at the same time, we're working to diversify and create more equitable pathways into the building and construction trades, which are primarily the demographics of the building and construction trades apprenticeship programs are still male and white participants. And so we want to make sure that all of our programs are matching the demographics of the communities where they work. And then we're trying to push the needle and innovate with new ideas and strategies related to intermediaries, incentives, tax credits, and other tools that allow us to help grow adoption. So to do all that, we have a team that helps build programs. So to make sure that anyone that's interested in a registered apprenticeship program can assess, does a registered apprenticeship program make sense for their business need? And then we support them in that design and development. We provide, of course, quality assurance and compliance checks for the registered apprenticeship programs. And then we're really trying to grow resources for that post-registration support, DEIA, and access to funding for apprentices and employers, which I'll talk a little bit more about when we get to some of the legislation and initiatives. I have this in here more as background just for our State Apprenticeship Council and our State Apprenticeship Agency. But one thing that's unique about how Colorado's State Apprenticeship Council is set up is that it's actually 2 committees that make up our State Apprenticeship Council. And then we have some ex officio governor appointed non-voting members. And what we like about our structure is that it allows us to really have targeted conversations for the specific needs of different industries. So we have one committee that's focused on the building and construction trades. And then we have another committee that's focused on new and emerging industries. And then we have our ex officio members that make up state agencies and other segments of our system. And so we have joint meetings where everyone comes together and advises the state apprenticeship agency, but then we're also able to have targeted conversations to meet the needs of the specific types of apprenticeship programs. So I saw a few hands go up and happy to pause and answer a question.
Sarah, you want to call on somebody?
You, Senator.
Okay, thank you. First of all, is your SAC, is it the entity that approves or doesn't approve the program, or is that done by the staff?
It's done by the staff.
So these are just advisory.
Correct.
Okay, second, that's number one. Number two is, what was the politics of setting up two different committees? I know they do, I think they do a variation of that in California too.
Yeah, so in order to be approved by USDOL as part of the National Apprenticeship System, we do have to have one SAC. You can't have two state apprenticeship councils that are doing different things. It's one state apprenticeship council. And so that was how we decided to do our structure with two committees that make up our state apprenticeship council. So when the original legislation passed, it was actually two different entities. And then when we went to get approved by USDOL, that was not in compliance and would not lead to us being approved. So we actually had to run legislation to restructure and make it clear that we had one state apprenticeship council that advises our agency with kind of two specializations within there. So that was some of the politics around that. And the primary reason that we believe this is valuable is because the issues within the building and construction trades and the topics that come up there are not always relevant to the new and emerging industries, which we define as every occupation outside of the building and construction trades. So for the new and emerging industries, we want to learn from the building and construction trades and the structures, the lessons that they have from doing registered apprenticeship for so long, but we're trying to build out that infrastructure for new and emerging industries more.
Right, but I'm really pushing the question of the politics of it. Was splitting up this way pushed by the building trades or pushed by the non-building trades? Was it contentious? Was it everyone said, oh, this is a great way, perfect? And actually the real politics of it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the overall legislation and push to do a state apprenticeship agency was very much pushed by the labor side and the building construction trades. And then I think we have some other entities in Colorado that are really big proponents of apprenticeship outside of the building and construction trades. And so I think they pushed to have some of those positions added to make sure that their interests were represented and that it wasn't only focused on building and construction trades. But I think the way it worked was because there was a spot for everyone, that it allowed that to move forward and have support from both sides. But that was my understanding of how it played out from my perspective. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'll also say for with USDOL in getting approved as the state apprenticeship agency, it is they require that the apprenticeship council is advisory. So that was another piece that we had to make sure was in there. The original legislation was focused more, I think, was designed to have more responsibility to approve programs. And so when we worked with USDOL to get our rules and legislation approved and to get that delegated authority, we had to adjust that and make it clear it was advisory.
I'm sorry, one quick question. That was not my understanding. And I could be totally wrong about this. You know more than I do. Is you're saying DOL says none of these state councils, all of these state councils have to only be advisory, they can't be the decision makers?
That, I think that in terms of registering programs, like that was one of the pieces that we had to work with USDOL with about to make sure that the State Apprenticeship Council was advisory.
Okay, thank you.
And there might be other state apprenticeship agencies that have had state apprenticeship agencies long before federal legislation passed or those pieces. And so there were some different structures, but that was
thank you.
Our experience with it. All right. And then, yeah, so this just kind of goes into the specific role of the Colorado State Apprenticeship Council and how it operates. And you can have, you know, depending on how deep you want to go, you can check out our bylaws. But again, really trying to advise the State Apprenticeship Agency. What we do go to them in is around our policy guidance, which we call infos. And get their feedback on, and we work with them through the State Apprenticeship Council to advise on strategic initiatives, any other challenges that are bubbling up, and to also help inform some of the other workforce development entities like our State Workforce Board and other commissions that were set up. And then, yeah, so we have a goal, a 5-year goal of 500 new registered apprenticeship programs. We're in our 2nd year of that, and we have 31 programs as of our new state fiscal year, which is July 1 for us. And then just a quick snapshot of our active sponsors and apprentices as of September 16th. And then I just wanted to highlight a few pieces of legislation. It's been a very busy legislative couple of years for apprenticeship in Colorado. And I know Misty gave you some background of like even before that, how all of the legislation that took place to help get us to this point. And so I'm going to run through these at a very high level, but then happy to go deeper on whichever ones feel most relevant to you. But the first one was a pilot program to place 2 outreach specialists focused on registered apprenticeship in a rural and urban high school or school district in Colorado. So it gave us funding for 2 FTE to implement that program and help us see what is needed to be able to make sure students, faculty, and parents are able to understand apprenticeship as a viable post-secondary option. 1246 had a portion of it that was a grant to existing registered apprenticeship programs to increase access to those programs for more diverse participants and to add any additional supportive services that might be needed. And so it was a small grant program there, which we call our build-up grants. Those were focused on grants within the building and or registered apprenticeship programs within the building and construction trades. The next legislation was much more technical changes that addressed the feedback we received from USDOL and to get our State Apprenticeship Agency and State Apprenticeship Council statutes in compliance with federal regulations in order to be approved. So very much what we were talking about just before. Then we had a teacher degree apprenticeship program. So I know this was part of the discussion with the representative from Indiana, but we have a new pathway for teachers to earn their license and a bachelor's degree through a teacher degree apprenticeship program. This is a partnership with the Colorado Department of Education in order to shore up our teacher pipeline. And so that is that piece. We have a state apprenticeship directory, which allows us to highlight and showcase all of the registered apprenticeships in Colorado, as well as additional information around when they're hiring, completion rates, and other key pieces of information that were part of our legislation. And so this updated those, and it gives us a resource to share the variety of apprenticeship options available. Senate Bill 104 directs us to align registered apprenticeship program and career and technical education programs. We have hundreds of thousands of students who participate in career and technical education. And we have 7,000 participants each year in registered apprenticeship. We want to make it easier for CTE participants to be able to connect directly into a registered apprenticeship program as part of their CTE program, as a pre-apprenticeship, or as prior learning for a registered apprenticeship program. So we're working on that. We have legislation for a grant specifically to line workers in the registered apprenticeship programs for line workers to support access and expanded capacity for those training programs. This next one, 1439, has 3 components. It's a tax credit for employers in the new and emerging industries who hire an apprentice and retain that apprentice for at least 6 months can get a tax credit. It's up to 10 apprentices per year per employer. And so it's $12,600 if they retain that apprentice for the full year. So up to $126,000 for an employer to hire and retain apprentices outside of the building and construction trades. And then we have additional grant programs for intermediaries and businesses who want to launch or expand a registered apprenticeship program. And last but not least is the credential quality apprenticeship classification, which is mandates the Department of Higher Education, State Apprenticeship Agency, and others to adopt the international framework for credentials to slot basically all of the different types of education and workforce training programs into a framework so we can identify equivalencies to say that a 4-year electrician registered apprenticeship program is similar to what level of post-secondary education, like a bachelor's degree or master's degree, and kind of make sure that we're appropriately categorizing and able to talk about the different ways people can earn credentials and get that validated through this framework. So I know that was a lot, but wanted to just give you the high level and then happy to dive deeper on any of those pieces of legislation or about anything else I've rattled off to you all.
Senator?
Yeah, thank you very, very much. Very interesting. Several questions. Does the state have any goals for increasing the number of apprentices? Not the number of apprenticeship programs, but the number of apprentices?
Yeah, so we are working on identifying the baseline and building goals. So right now we have a goal around youth apprenticeships to increase them by 20% or 25%. We have and the way in Colorado, we define youth apprenticeship as someone 16 to 24 years old who participates in a registered apprenticeship program. So other states are having a separate definition for what youth apprenticeship looks like. We are referring to youth in a registered apprenticeship program. And so that's our main target related to apprentices right now, is to increase their participation by 25%.
From what to what? What is it now? What do you want to get?
Yeah, that's a natural follow-up, and I will put the specific numbers. We have, when we look at 16 to 24-year-olds, it's a very low number in Colorado. It's, I believe it's in the hundreds. And so I'll be able to follow up with you with the specific number.
That's fine. But you're going to come up with a broader goal on apprenticeships beyond youth apprenticeships?
Yeah, so our focus right now, especially with all of the recent legislation, is how do we make sure more youth are directly connecting into registered apprenticeship? And so that's why our initial apprentice focused goal is focused on youth. But larger than that, we want to embed registered apprenticeship into our other workforce development strategies from clean energy, quantum, and others. So then we'll have a larger goal related to number of apprentices and increasing that number.
The only apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship with a small y that I'm generally aware of is CareerWise's program. My impression is that that's not a registered apprenticeship.
They do register some of their programs. So CareerWise started in 2016 in Colorado, and you're correct that previously they had not registered their apprenticeship programs, but over the last few years, they were actually one of the big proponents of our state apprenticeship agency,
right,
and are registering more of their programs and are also helping us kind of push the needle to define what youth apprenticeship looks like in Colorado. So
gotcha.
Yes,
they're moving in the direction of registered apprenticeships. Okay.
Yeah.
On your House Bill 24-1439 financial incentives and tax credits.
Yeah.
Is there a budget number about how much you're willing to spend, or is that open-ended entitlement?
We have a $15 million.
$15 million. Gotcha. And then on the SB 24-143, credential quality apprenticeship, I heard the words, but I didn't understand the value proposition.
Makes sense. Yeah. So are you familiar with the ISCED framework?
Not really. I've heard of it, but I don't really.
Yeah, it's an international framework that's used primarily in Europe. But what we are doing in Colorado is adopting it to basically give us a better way to talk to employers as well as potential participants about kind of the equivalency between different types of education. So right now, the conversation is often you have the quote unquote traditional education, post-secondary education system of associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, and so on and so forth. Then you have registered apprenticeship programs. And as we all know, registered apprenticeship programs are customizable and vary greatly based on the occupation that you're training for. And so what this framework will allow us to do, and actually charges us with doing, is to take this international classification that goes from level 1s to 6, I believe, and it allows you to say, okay, level 1 is a high school diploma. Level 2 is associate's degree. Level 3 is a bachelor's degree. This is, for the sake of example, the actual levels might vary, but then it takes that and then it allows us to say, okay, based on the registered apprenticeship program, years, skill, complexity of the technical skills, where do we want to slot that in? So we can say that these apprenticeship programs, these bachelor degree programs are equivalent. If I'm an employer and I'm hiring someone, I'm looking for a level of experience as demonstrated by an apprenticeship or a post-secondary degree. And so
you don't mean experience, you mean expertise.
Yes, that's a great, yes.
Okay, I understand. So it's basically a branding marketing thing.
I would say branding and marketing, and a way to kind of clarify, Colorado has also really been promoting skills-based hiring practices and helping us understand how we can better talk about the skills and experience people get from a wide variety of education and training programs. And so we believe that this classification, which is already adopted at an international level, will help us explain the value of these different types of programs more clearly.
What else are you doing on promoting skills-based hiring?
So Governor Polis did sign an executive order to remove degree requirements from our state jobs. We have some additional efforts that are more externally focused through our workforce board and workforce system, where we're training employers on how to change their hiring practices and adopt skills-based hiring. But I think similar to work-based learning, it's a huge culture shift, and the idea is one thing, the operationalization of it is much different, and we're seeing that at the state agency level too. So, but those are kind of the high-level things we've done, is executive order and then training through our workforce business services.
Okay, well, just FYI, former Governor Hogan did the same executive order in Maryland. The Moore administration in Maryland has continued that push, but also we're just launching in the State Department, our workforce board, a specific study on ways to promote skills-based hiring. So you might want to talk to other folks. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Denise?
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. It's very good. I can't wait to start looking up some of these bills. Could you give us examples of the emerging industries that you were talking about?
Yes, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is actually share my screen, and are you all still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is our data dashboard that we update quarterly. So our next quarterly update is coming, but it gives you kind of a sense of demographics. So you can dive into some of those pieces around the age groups and demographics of our apprentices. But for new and emerging industries, it's very broad. As I said, it's everything outside of the building and construction trades. And so what you can see here is some of our top industries within the new and emerging industries segment, from healthcare support, production management, computer, mathematical. Going deeper, you can look at the new and emerging industries by occupation and get a sense there. So wanted to highlight that data dashboard as a resource for you all to dive deeper into, and you can see a little bit more about what's going on in Colorado today with apprenticeship. but it's yeah, healthcare, business operations, IT, government, as kind of initial examples. Teaching would be another one that's in the new and emerging industries.
Okay, great. Do you have representatives of those unions also on the board?
Right now, in our new and emerging industries committee, we have SEIU represented, and then we actually are about to be recruiting for, we have the first state apprenticeship council members. They're terming out, and so we're specifically recruiting for some of the unions that represent new and emerging industries. And teaching has been the high priority for us, just especially because of the legislation around teacher degree apprenticeships. But SEIU has been the main representative on our state apprenticeship council from the new and emerging industry side.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been really fantastic. Thank you, Catherine. I know we have some hard outs at 1 o'clock. Is there one last question anybody has for our speakers? Senator, you still have your hand up. Do you have anything else?
I didn't mean to. No, I didn't take it down. No, these were great.
Okay.
These were very helpful. Thank you.
Landon, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Yeah, thanks again for coming to this session. Hope it was informative. Just so you're all aware, since we had so many questions, there will be another resource sent out. I think Sarah's going to send it out, that NCSL put together just with a few other state examples as well, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, and California, just some highlights from those states in case there's anything else you'd like to learn about what's happening across the country. Again, thanks for joining us. I'll pass it off to Sarah if there's anything else you have to add.
I think just thank you to NCSL for organizing this. Thank you for Misty and Catherine for being here, as well as to the representative from earlier and everybody who attended today. And as with the rest of these presentations, this will be available on the Apprenticeships Commission's webpage on the Department of Legislative Services website. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.